All right, so I've been gone for a few weeks. Sadly, that is because of this little game called God of War. As you can see right here, I spent too much time on it and I did not make any reviews for the last few weeks. So, to recap real quick, episode 5 and 6 were super good. 6, probably the best animated episode all season, one of the top 5 Bleach animated episodes of all time. That fight with Old Man Yama, and what we found out was a fake Yuhaba was kind of insane. They completely went all out. Bleach is easily a contender for probably the best anime of the year, and that's, I know it sounds kind of biased coming from me, but it's just hard to ignore how hard these episodes are going. On to episode 7. Quick recap for people. This Thousand Year Blood War is the story of the Soul Reapers fighting against the Quincy's. They have a long history together, and it is all finally coming to the boiling point, and they are completely obliterating the Soul Society with the Soul Reapers, who are basically balancers of souls in this world that we are currently a part of. Until this point, Ichigo has not been able to make it into Soul Society, but he finally does. But before I get into that, we got a very interesting pre-opening moment. We got to see the original Gote 13, the all brand new captains, and you saw how brutal they were. And there was a tease of Captain Unohana as an original, as being a part of the Soul Society or Soul Reaper captain since the very beginning, and she does not look as peaceful and as calm and as caring as we know her today. Um, for those who don't know, she is the Squad 4 captain. Squad 4 is all medical Soul Reapers, and yeah, complete 180 from who she is now compared to as compared to who she was back then. We also saw, Old Man Yamamoto as a younger Soul Reaper, and they were very brutal. And to see this brutality in the animated form was kind of amazing. Um, Bleach has never been an anime that had a lot of violence or things of that nature. It's not grotesque or anything like that, but it is violent. There is blood that's shown throughout this new arc, and they are doing a very good job of conveying war. Um, there's been anime in the past that have done it, but Bleach is kind of hitting the right notes, and it's some people, you can see the fear in a lot of people's eyes. They don't want to fight. They start to realize that they are losing, and yeah, the very opening kind of showed how ugly it could get. Cut back to where we are presently, and Old Man Yamamoto is officially chopped in half on death's door. And even as he's dying, his body just can't let Old Man Yamamoto or Yuhabak walk away. As he does turn around and walk away, his hand grabs him. Yuhabak slices his hand off and starts to disrespect him. He puts his hand on his head and talks down to him and said that basically the Gote 13 died the day the Quincy's died 1,000 years ago, and he is basically tired of his shit, and he proceeds to obliterate him. And when he does that, all the other captains feel his spiritual pressure being destroyed, and the Quincy's, of course, get the upper hand back. Yuhabak uh, calls for the complete annihilation. They bring in more Quincy, and they proceed to kill more Soul Reapers. While this is happening, Ichigo is still trapped in the world between Wakumundo, where the Hollows are at, and Soul Society. He's trying to get there. He's trapped, and he's sensing all these Soul Reapers, basically their essence, go out, and he's freaking out. He's going as hard as he can, Novel, and then finally the jail that he's in gets broken open. You see the third seat of the research division completely. He's injured as well. Opens the door, gets Ichigo out. Ichigo proceeds to blitz the Quincy that's there, and he takes the third seat to some other Soul Reapers so they can help him. The second he gets into Soul Society, all the Soul Reaper captains feel his essence, and in turn, all the Quincy's that are in Soul Society feel his essence. And he does not waste any time. He's super fast. He checks on his friends, Renji and Rukia, notices that they're still alive, and he immediately goes to Byakuya, who these two have a very unique past. Uh, Byakuya, of course, wanted to kill Ichigo. They fought, and it was a fight for principle, not because of a hatred. And that fight taught Byakuya that Ichigo doesn't have anything against the Soul Reapers. He just has very strong moral code, and ever since then, he's kind of had a respect for Ichigo. But he constantly reminds Ichigo, "You're a human. Don't get yourself involved with Soul Reaper problems. Take care of your people." And that comes into full circle on this episode, where Byakuya is dying, and he asks Ichigo to basically save the Soul Society, protect the Soul Society. At this moment, Byakuya's voice actor absolutely nails it. You can feel the pain. You can hear his voice trembling, um, and you can see the tears come down his face because he knows or in his eyes, he failed. He failed the Soul Society. He failed his friends. He failed his squad, and he hates having to turn to this human to help fix the problems that he could not fix himself. And Byakuya is very prideful, so to see that pain in his face and hear it in his voice is very heartbreaking. Um, Throughout all this time, you never see Ichigo's face. You see his, side, chin, all this moment until Byakuya flat out asks, "Protect Soul Society." And you see Ichigo's face in a way we really haven't seen throughout the whole series. He's very mad and he's very serious, and he does not waste any time. He goes straight to Yuhabak, throws his sword down to keep him from leaving, and as Yuhabak is doing your typical villain monologue, Ichigo wants nothing to do with it. He flat out asks him, "Are you the one who destroyed Soul Society?" And as Yuhabak says yes, Ichigo charges him, and the explosion of power and the image of Ichigo's face is something I've never seen. And like I said, have watched all 366 episodes. It sent chills down my spine. But before that, let me take a quick second to rewind. When Ichigo, right before he leaves Byakuya, the rain that's falling starts to evaporate before it hits him. His spiritual pressure is so hot and boiling that the rain isn't even touching him. The atmosphere is literally changing around him. So as he takes off to go meet Yuhabak, Byakuya takes a final few seconds to reflect on how Ichigo didn't even say anything. He just turned around and left. But that's the type of person Ichigo is. He's not going to um, sit there and try to figure out what he can do. He's just going to let his instincts take over, and that's what he does. And with that, we see Byakuya drop his sword, and it starts to shatter. And as of this moment, it looks like he is dead, which is another huge loss for the Soul Reapers and the Soul Society, and Ichigo's friends, especially Rukia and Renji, who have a very tight bond with Byakuya. So as Ichigo's, confronting Yuhaba, they end up fighting. And I will say this fight, one, was beautifully animated. it was not a part of the manga. So this whole episode was probably 75 to 80% new content, which is for a manga reader is amazing. And it made the episode so much more impactful. And it's really, continuing this trend of this is the way Bleach should have ended. But they have a fight, and Ichigo is exhausted. You can see it in on his clothing. You can see it in his face. He has blood from just trying to break it out of that gel, and his sword is chipped all the way across it. So he's been going at it as hard as he can to break out of that gel, and the fact is shown on his sword. Um, so as these two guys are fighting, Ichigo isn't getting completely whooped. He's at least holding his own with Yuhaba. And at the very end, Yuhaba grabs Ichigo, pins him down, and stabs him in the throat with his sword. And when you think Ichigo's done, he's like, hey, we can revive him and we'll take him back. We'll take him back and revive him and we'll put him under our command. Because that seems like that's what he's trying to do, keep Ichigo on their side and not with the Soul Reapers. But in that moment, you think Ichigo's, of course, stabbed in his face or in his neck. That's not the case. There is a nice glowing pattern on his throat, which is the same pattern we see on the Quincy's, which freaks out Yuhabak. He comes back and he takes a swing at him, cuts his arm, and it's glowing, pulsating, the same pattern. Ichigo doesn't realize his body's doing this. He's just trying to fight. Yuhabak realizes that sending a true Quincy to contain Ichigo was a mistake because that has awakened spiritual pressure from the memories of his soul. And as Ichigo's trying to blow all this off, Yuhabak is explaining to Ichigo that he doesn't even realize who his mother is, and when he mentions that, that kind of pisses off Ichigo and tends to throw. Ichigo has a close bond with his mom, so it throws him into more of a stressed out, off center situation. So he's starting to freak out. He doesn't want to hear it. He's just trying to stop these guys. So as Yuhabak's gonna deliver a final blow to him to basically kill him, take him back, res him, and have him fight under the Quincy's, his timer runs out. And apparently he has a timer for how long he can be in the Soul Society, because as you saw in the pre-opening, he was killed 1,000 years ago. They are going to go into how that all came to be, but at this moment, all we know is, as viewers, is that there's a timer. He figures he should have had more time, and lo and behold, Aizen fucked with his senses and threw his timing off. So Aizen, being the villain type that he is, got in a few shots, if you will, in this grand scheme of the war that's going on. So Yuhabak and the rest of the Quincy's, their shadow comes out and takes them to the Vandenreich, where their base is at. And as they are starting to leave, Ichigo blitzes them to try to stop him because he's not thinking straight. And in that moment, his Bankai sword gets chopped in half, which is a big problem because, as we will find out probably in the next episode or two, if your sword breaks, you can't get that power back. And I'm sure I will touch base on this one when they explain it more in upcoming episodes, but that's the gist of it. So Ichigo's freaking out because his sword's cut. But granted, his whole soul, in essence, was exhausted. He was spending this whole time trying to get into the Soul Society, trying to break that prison that he was in to no avail. And it reflected in his sword. But yeah, at this moment, Soul Society is pretty much decimated. A lot of the captains are injured. A few of them had their Bankai stolen, and from what we can tell, we've lost a few heavy hitters on the Soul Society side. next week's episode is going to, of course, go into the aftermath. It will probably be the first calm of this run since episode 1 or 2, which is kind of crazy. But that was the gist of all of that. And a final side piece, the soundtrack for this episode was all over the place in the best way possible. They brought back some older songs for some certain moments, but the soundtrack on this anime is so good, and it's always been good. And they have the same sound designer or sound team as they did it in the original run, so it's not like he's missing a beat. He's bringing in new songs, and they are fitting so well. So many people compliment the sound audios, and you hear the audios rant all over the place on social media, TikTok, Instagram. People don't realize it's from Bleach, but it is from Bleach. Um, so yeah, that was pretty much the gist of it. Again, I'm not a big reviewer, so I'm not going to give it a number point system. On the smash or pass, it's another smash. This episode was so good. Um, and it's solidified my reasoning that, or my idea that this could easily be anime of the year. And that's me trying not to be biased. Like, I've seen a lot of the anime out there, but the numbers and the the lists that have been out are showing this thing's getting um, user reviews on par with some of the best TV shows in the last 10 years, and I'm talking Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones level episodes or user reviews. That's kind of crazy for an anime. The only other anime that's really done that is Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer. So that tells you right now Bleach is in good company. So yeah, of course, like I said, this is for you to hopefully convince you to check it out. And like I've said before, start on the Thousand Year Blood War if you want, and then go back and watch the original run. But no, there's a lot of filler. You can skip a lot of that to try to catch up, or not even catch up, but to see the bonds and the ties that everyone has, because it is going to make everything more impactful. So yeah, that's where I'm going to end it today. I hope you have a good one. See ya.